Greetings, Blood Bowlers, and welcome to the All or Nuffle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Blood Bowl. Greetings, Blood Bowlers, and welcome back to another episode of All or Nuffle, and Happy New Year. I hope you have a very prosperous 2024. And one of my New Year's resolutions is to get back into recording All or Nuffle regularly. Anybody that follows my TikTok account will know why All or Nuffle took a little bit of a hit at the back end of next year. I'm not going to repeat it because if you have come from TikTok, you're going to be sick of hearing it. So I'm Baz. This podcast is primarily a source to discuss Blood Bowl, educate people on Blood Bowl. Basically, I'm just a massive fan of Blood Bowl. I'm really passionate, and I want more people to be as passionate as me. However, a little bit hypocritically, this episode is not actually centered solely around Blood Bowl. We're going to be talking about the wider community as a whole. That will include Blood Bowl, but it's the wider tabletop community, and more specifically, the competitive scene in different games. I've got a feeling that we're going to cover 40k a lot because it's got the biggest competitive scene. So for this subject, I decided to bring along two guests. I've got Steve and Mike, two gentlemen who I met on TikTok in the hobby community on there. Steve, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit, mate? Just whether it's about yourself personally or your hobby side of your life.
Yeah, so I'm Steve. So I've got a TikTok account, When I Can Hobby. I've recently only got back into the entire hobby scene recently in the last about 6 months. And I started a TikTok channel because I wanted to track my progress in it. And yeah, I'm new back into it, and I've realised there's a lot of things that have changed. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being on here with you and chatting about some of the things that were not and which are now. And yeah, that's where I am. So I basically document the journey of someone getting back into the hobby.
Very nice. And we've got another guest in the form of Mike, who some people may know as Droog Janus. And I'm going to have to ask you, Mike, really quick. Is Droog Janus like a play on words to mean something of like about an anus?
No. Don't you start.
Oh, right.
It's like you've told the joke that I've been told a million times. I'm not going to tell you.
No, just because I thought that's definitely a play on words, but I can't figure it out.
I'm not. It is a bit of a play on words, but it's not really. It's one of those. It's a game of tag that you make up when you're about 14 and you think you're clever. And I haven't changed it because it means a lot because I made it when I was 14. I thought I was clever, so I thought I'd keep it. So like my bloodthirster.
Well, so there's a lot more to you than just your username. Do you want to just introduce yourself personally and then maybe a little bit about your interaction with the hobby, mate?
Yeah, so my name's Mike. I run a TikTok account called @DroogJanus. Like Steve, I've recently got back into Warhammer 40,000. I've probably been playing it for about the last year now. My main reason I re-entered was because they dropped World Eaters Codex, and I've been collecting World Eaters since I was about 13 years old, so I'm like a World Eaters fan for like 25 years or something obscene like that. So I saw that they're dropping a World Eaters Codex. I'm like, I'm getting back into this. And then I had a TikTok channel that was relatively popular anyway, just covering, nerd content really. So I thought I'd like melt the two together. I met Steve through Hobby Club. Love Hobby Club. It's so much fun. Met yourself through TikTok and Hobby Club. So it's great just being able to reconnect into the community through the various social medias. That I have reconnected through people with, it's been great.
Yeah, so I think actually, to be fair, we've probably done a very bad job here of getting a diverse view on things because I also took a really long break from the hobby and only returned in 2021. So we're going to be presenting a very narrow-minded perspective on a lot, maybe a lot of prejudice, like competitive players.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, I used to play, but it wasn't called Mesberg or whatever they call it back then. It was just Lord of the Rings, as we all referred to it back then in like 2004 and 5. I played Lord of the Rings and 40k, and then stopped around. I remember it was 2010 when I sold all my stuff in like a job lot to somebody, and then took like a 12-year break, and then just as things were starting to ease after the pandemic. Somebody told me, I'm a big American football fan. Somebody said, "Oh, there's like a tabletop version that by Games Workshop." I was like, I didn't know that, but now I must buy everything. So yeah, we've all got very similar experiences in terms of used to partake, took a break, and have recently come back. And I think we're not alone in that. I think there is a lot of people who did it when they were younger, and then life gets in the way a little bit, maybe, and then you just think, nah, fuck it, I'm gonna play it anyway.
I think it's like it's a millennials midlife crisis. I think instead of buying like a motorbike and having an affair with a secretary, we go out and buy Tiny Little Men.
100%.
That's
I was
it.
literally going to agree with you there. There's a lot of people since I got back into it. Well, there's 3 of us here, so we're all in the same boat. Like, I've met lots of people in the same situation. But yeah, it's definitely our midlife crisis. This is my big red shiny car.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. And my
This is
models
my
are
hair
literally
transplant.
big, red, and shiny. Like I've got anger on, he's big, red, and shiny. I've literally got like it's just the model version of. I don't know what sleeping with a secretary counts as in Warhammer 40,000. I've not figured that one out yet. That's
So
weird.
we've all got like similar sort of journeys, although we've interacted with different games and stuff. Although some at the same games. What, if any, exposure in both stints of your time in the hobby, whether that's back when you used to it or now, what is your level of exposure with competitive scenes in any of the games that you've sort of like tried out in the past or like now?
So part of the reason I actually left the hobby originally for me was just the people. In all honesty, so when I was younger, I played a bit, but it got very I don't know how to put this politely.
No, you don't have to be polite. I'm going to put an 18 plus on this episode, so you don't have to be polite.
There's lots of people being absolutely fucking nerdy about it and making it, you make a mistake, but they make you feel like you're an absolute fool for it, when actually that's not what it's about. Like, we're all in it to learn together.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm not, I do lots of other things. I don't have any of this kind of interaction in the hobby or in anything else in my life. So I was like, nah, I'm out of it. And now coming back into it, I've met lots of like-minded people who are wanting to get back into it, kind of left at the same time as me, getting back into the hobby. And it's been quite fun, good and interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you know, I'm just about to start having a go at competitive. So I haven't actually played competitively yet. I played small games and stuff, so I'm looking into getting into competitive. I won't ruin the podcast too much, but yeah, there's a lot of things to discuss about that and how my feet.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Mike? In your 2 stints in hobby, have you delved into competitive play at all, or?
So, like in my first stint when I was in my teens, I think the most closest thing to competitive play I got was playing at the Games Workshop in Leicester. But I just went casually. I got thrashed every week. I didn't care. I was like 17. I didn't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? I was just going on and having a laugh. Obviously, there were like older guys there. They were obviously more into like playing seriously, whatever. And as I've come back into the hobby, the local clubs that are available for me to go to, basically 3 out of 4 of them are all competitive clubs. So it's pretty much impossible for me to avoid it, to be honest.
Right.
So I learned to play 9th edition with a competitive player. I played 9th edition with competitive players. I've played 10th edition with competitive players. And it's quite hard when you're learning something new again. I mean, the fundamentals are very similar, but there's a lot of changes, obviously. And it's pretty heartbreaking to just be repeatedly battered by other players. So I look for a more casual outlet for my gaming, so I could have a bit more breathing space. Do you know what I mean? Play someone that isn't hell bent on absolutely battering me with the meta army, and that's given me, since I found a 4th club that's quite local to me. It's still a reasonable drive, but it's a lot more casual there. I don't get as many games, but the games that I do get generally are a bit more laid back. And I managed
and therefore
to
you'll enjoy them more.
Yeah, I have enjoyed them more. It's not like I didn't enjoy the competitive games. They were interesting learning experiences against people that play the game competitively a lot. But the casual, I think I started winning that made me feel a bit better. Because you know what I mean? Because before I started going to this competitive club, this non-competitive club, my win rate was like 20%. And I was like, ugh. And I'm looking at the meta score and I'm seeing my army's moved up to like 55% meta. And I'm like, well, you know what? I could probably aim for the 55% win rates. And I moved to this casual club and my win rate's gone up to 52.
Nice.
So that's good, but you've got to balance with the fact that actually I'm now playing just at a casual club and not a competitive club. So actually, if I went back to the competitive club, would my win rate drop back down again? So there's always that kind of thing to consider. But I try not to think about win rate too much. But if I'm sort of in the 50% kind of area, that I'm kind of okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I never played competitive when I was younger. And see, a lot of people are surprised, and I'm not trying to say I know more about Blood Bowl than anybody on the planet. I'm not saying that. I'm so passionate. I mean, when I got into it in like early 2021, from like February 2021 to like April, I read the rule book from front cover to back cover like 6 times. Just I was just so enthralled with the game, and I loved it so much that I just wanted to absorb everything. So it's been quite a quick journey for me. Like the learning curve for maybe quite a lot of people who enjoy the game but aren't as maybe as passionate about it as me, it takes a little bit longer. But for me, it's been quite a bit of a fast pass really. So I have played in the past 18 months in maybe somewhere between 6 to a dozen competitive tournaments in varying sizes. So see, I know a lot about Blood Bowl, but I'm not the best player. I've only won 2 out of them. And the 2 that I won were smaller ones, with not as many people. But for me, it's just turning up and playing, like whether it's competitive or casual, whether I'm turning up to teach somebody that I'm obviously going to let win, just so they have a positive experience. For me, like I'm never going to bring somebody in for like who says they want to learn Blood Bowl and then absolutely batter them, because then they're not going to play anymore, and that's one less person for me to have
You're
to
such a
organise
nice
games with.
guy. That's honestly, if I had a guy I played the other week at one of my clubs, and I didn't realise he was quite inexperienced, and I brought an absolute beast of a list and battered him. And like as I was going through the game, I realised that the guy didn't really know what he was doing, and I was like, "Shit, I've absolutely battered this guy." And I thought it was like reasonable, and I did feel a bit bad, but also
Well,
absolutely
you
battered
see,
him.
that's just highlighted like another thing about the different sizes of communities. You can probably afford to do that because 40k opponents are a dime a dozen. Whereas any Blood Bowl opponent I come across, or somebody who says they're interested in playing Blood Bowl, I want to water them like a plant and be like, yeah, get into this game, definitely. Yeah. I need more players in my future leagues. You're gonna love it. Yeah, definitely buy the full starter set. Yeah, so that's my exposure to competitive gaming, and off the back of that, given the fact that you guys have said that you've either had none or limited exposure to the competitive side, I'm going to make this next point a little bit more general. I was going to ask what sort of stereotypes or preconceived notions do you have about competitive gaming? Like when you think of it, you can be a little bit judgmental if you want. What sort of people do you think of? What sort of like experiences and like scenarios and like engagement with one another in those communities? What do you imagine from the worst to the least worst? Because there's no best.
So my experience, well, looking at it and getting back into it, and obviously all the stuff that's out there at the present moment, I think pretty much everyone in the competitive scene, when I look at it, are still super sweaty nerds, and take that the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing this series on YouTube, where I want to pick up game systems and go and compete, because I've never competed in competitive, and I want to see how easy it is to get into it and what the people are actually like, because I've met you guys, and you've competed, Drew, you play, there's lots of things there. I've been put off, like my local clubs. I've got 2 clubs local to me, and they are sassy. You've got to be in with them, and there's no breathing space unless it's a new game system. They put me off 40k, I'll be honest with you. I'm looking at doing kill team and stuff, but yeah, so my preconceived idea of it is still quite, I want to say a better word than sweaty, but yeah, sweaty.
Yeah, no, it sounds offensive, but we know, and anybody who plays tabletop gaming, or do you know what, even video games, will know what you mean by sweaty. And what about you, Mike? What sort of preconceived notions, or not even preconceived, if you've experienced something personally, like what are the stereotypes to competitive gaming? I've seen you do a couple of TikTok videos before about competitive 40k players, so stuff is sort of like along that vein.
I was really I think I was a bit shocked as to how many people in Warhammer 40,000 describe themselves as competitive players, but yet
Yeah.
don't really have the credibility of a competitive player. Do you know what I mean? I think if you were going to choose some more appropriate words, I would describe most of the people that I run into that say they're competitive players as aspiring competitive players.
Yeah.
While many, I don't think I've actually met a single competitive player. Do you know what I mean? Because especially if you look at like definitions of like what's a competitive football player look like, what does a competitive darts player look like, what does a competitive UFC fighter look like. Not your average competitive 40k player doesn't appear to be any of those people, and yet you get them wandering around saying, "Hey, I'm a comp player," and then I just found it very odd that people go to a tournament, lose all 3 games, and then say I'm a comp player. And I'm like, well, you're not. You're not a comp player. You're an aspiring comp player. I don't actually think there's that many competitive players in the hobby at all, other than like some really top end guys that are consistently playing at every tournament. Like I would no way consider myself a competitive player until I've got tournament wins under my belt. Do you know what I mean? So I found it very odd. As for the actual people that you get in them, it's just a whole range of slightly odd people, which is fine because I'm a slightly odd person, and that's cool. You get all sorts, horses for courses and all that. World's a rainbow, and in terms of like my expectations and meeting competitive people, they weren't really any different from what I'd expect from any sort of tabletop hobbyist. But then again, like I say, I don't really think I've met a competitive player yet, not a proper one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to speak about how I think the word competitive, as it's used in the way you said, like, where people aren't by definition competitive but are more aspiring. I think the definition has been sort of like bent a little bit to just mean anybody who is rocking up with the sole intention of winning.
Yeah.
That I think that, like, if you're, not that I agree that it's the correct term for it, but I think that the perception for the wider community is, if you're turning up to the game with any other notion than I'm going to play this game, the game itself is going to be fun and engaging. My opponent's going to be, a polite, reasonable person, and we're going to engage nicely with one another. If it's anything other than that, and it's just like, I'm turning up, and if I don't come away with a win, I'm not going to be happy. I think that's kind of what competitive has become characterized. And then with games like 40k, not so much in Blood Bowl, because the variety of lists or teams you can build are a lot smaller, but especially in games like 40k, where there's so many different options you can take, I think that the type of list that people build also leans into the definition of them being called a competitive player. Like, you get like you've just said earlier, Mike, about people taking meta lists, where it's like they fine-tuned that list not because it looks cool or because they want to use those minis, purely because they know that those models, abilities, buffs, debuffs, or whatever, mixed together just create the most likely opportunity to win. And I think that is where the community has sort of like branded that type of tabletop gamer as competitive, regardless of whether they actually go to tournaments or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, it's weird because I don't understand why. I understand why if you want to win, why you're perceived as necessarily being like hyper competitive. Do you know what I mean? It feels like the hobby's split into 2 groups of people. They're the hyper competitive people that only bring meta lists and are hell bent on winning regardless of whatever And then there's people that don't really give a toss and just throw stupid miniatures on the board for a laugh and bits about.
Yeah.
They seem to be like everything's binary, isn't it? The whole society's gone binary. And the binary element of Warhammer 40,000 is you're either a casual that's just basically pissing about, or a comp where you're like super serious, and you can't be in between. And where you land is basically how is based upon other people's judgments of you. Like, hey, that guy's got X meta unit, therefore they're a sweat. That guy's not put his sponsons on his Land Raider or something, so he's a casual. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think I've spoke to Steve before privately about this. Like, it sounds like we're kind of shitting on competitive scene and people who play the way that you've just described. But I think it's also important to like point out that people who want to play, people get enjoyment out of building a list and making it perfect, like with perfect synergy between units. Like, that's a very valid way to enjoy the hobby. If you get a kick out of, right, I'm building this list and it's not going to be because it looks cool or I want to use these minis, as I said earlier. It's purely because I'm, like making the tweaks. It's like building a car, like, and you want your car to be as fast as possible, but adding that extra little bit, tweaking this, changing that. You get the satisfaction from that. So, a lot of people find those type of people, depending on the personal demeanor, they can find them quite unpleasant to play against. But I think it's important to highlight, regardless of your stance on competitive scenes in tabletop gaming, that people who do like to play that way are just as valid in enjoying gaming that way as anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go on, Steve. What are you saying, mate?
No, I've got a few things to pick up on it, which I find quite interesting, but I was going to pull some similes, like the stuff you touched on there, Mike, about like where you got these competitive or aspiring competitive players and stuff. And I think I'm pulling some similarities back to when I played rugby, and I played at high level rugby. And it's funny how like you got different teams and different leagues, if you get what I'm saying, like how things go. And what I think is, in my opinion, with the competitive scene and like Warhammer and everything like this, it's new. This idea of being a competitive player, the competition level is a new thing, and people haven't figured out how to league themselves, or like how to space themselves. Like you said, we're literally like Jill. We literally got competitive or fun, and there's no in between. And this is a problem. This will become a problem for the community, because obviously the competitive scene will be. That's where people will go, watch, see everything that's going on. And then the clubs will drive competitive players and everything like this. But then there'll be less... Oh, Mike's gone. less and less...
Oh, dear. Yeah, carry on, Steve. It might just be able to join back in.
No, so there'll be... I feel like there's going to be less and less people wanting to join into the hobbies and stuff, because they feel like, well, they've got to be this competitive person, which is what it's not about, which is not the reason we started our hobbies and our hobby journey.
No, absolutely.
And I think there's a thing, well, to me, there's a point where something's going to need to come in, or a way is going to need to be organised, or a better way of categorising what is a competitive to a non-competitive player, or leaguing or tiering people is going to be where it's going to go. Because when I played rugby, if I was playing as a county level player and then I just played against a normal club, like, we wiped the floor with them. But those boys didn't want to play again. Like, it was that kind of thing. So, you always separate, like, county plays county, club plays club, league plays league, like, so everyone's in the same kind of areas. And the problem is literally, that's the big nerve-wracking thing for me. I'm going to turn up to these events, never played before, and I could end up with 3 sweaty players and get completely wiped off the table. And it will leave a sting in my mouth. It will not... I'm not going to lie, I go there to enjoy myself, but I also go there, like you said, to build a nice list, do the little tweaks, do things, and like I still want to win. That's why we play it, But if you get absolutely wiped and no one cares about it, you would just be like, well, what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah,
of this?
And I think that's one of the things that always back. I think that's one of the things that Blood Bowl gets really right, and not Blood Bowl itself. But you might have heard me mention NAF before, the New Amorical Football Association or whatever, and they were basically the guys who, when Games Workshop dropped Blood Bowl in, I think around 2004, and said they weren't going to do any more new editions. These were the guys who were like, well, we're keeping the competitive scene alive. We're going to update a living rule book and things like that. And now, even though Games Workshop has picked Blood Bowl back up, these guys are still going, and they've got you register yourself as a NAF player and you report your results, and there is a ranking. Now, although it's just one giant list and it's not split into leagues as you just described, but I think then at least people can sort of like look at those rankings and say, right, I ain't going to be beating anybody up in the 10th percentile, but if I aim for a couple of opponents in this 50th percentile around me, I can maybe work my way up and then up into 40th. So, and again, I will just keep repeating myself. I do think that is just something that Blood Bowl benefits from by being a smaller game, not less literally in size, but I mean in terms of community, because it's easier to like manage things like that.
But it's
I joined a. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. No, sorry. We're just happy that you're back.
I joined so at one of my local competitive clubs at the start of the year, they started a league, and they had two areas of the league. There was like comp players and like non-comp players, right? And this was the start. This was for the start of 10th edition, and in the comp player list were probably like 10 blokes. That were all like serious comp players, and then in the competitive list, there's about 35 people that all consider themselves like casuals. Now, I thought, well, I'm dead new to it. I'll join the casual league. I'll start picking up games. As I went into that casual league, I realised that within that casual league, I mean, like, I don't understand why some of these people have been put in that league. To be honest, one guy had been playing Warhammer 40,000 for like 9 years. But he decided that he belonged in the lower league because he hadn't played 10th edition before. And they're like, oh, okay, that's an interesting take. And this guy was just like battering everybody. And then there was another guy in it who, again, put himself in the beginners league because he hadn't played Warhammer 40,000 before. But like, he leant so hard immediately into meta lists. That like you just couldn't beat him. Like he literally just went, oh yeah, he must have just dropped $1,000 or so on a meta Space Marine list, and he just decimated everyone from the outset. And I was like, why are these fuckers even in this league? Do you know what I mean? On the other end of the scale, you know, I'm playing a woman that loves Sisters of Battle. She's got this beautifully painted army because that's her passion for the hobby is painting. Absolutely magnificently painted. But she couldn't play for shit. I absolutely battered her, and I barely knew how to play the game. So I'm like, wait a minute, I joined this beginners league, and this is mental. But the thing is, what weirded me out is that the guys that ran the club and set the league up, they knew these people, so they just all went, yeah, you like meta competitive lunatic, you can get in the beginners league. Like, what are you playing at?
No, it's
I don't play there anymore.
No, we don't play there anymore. No, it was a thing that when you dropped out, I was saying like how the problem coming back from a rugby background, like, you know, players and abilities of players and teams are like leagued and tiered, like, you know, and the problem that you have in Warhammer and everything else is it's not. It's literally, I'm a comp player, I'm not, but then there's nothing regulating that kind of that transition. That you know, like you said, like two people who are basically competitive players who should play in a competitive league didn't, you know, and it can ruin it for other people, like, you know, people new into the hobby and stuff, like, you know. And so
absolutely.
Said about, like, you know, NAF, like, you know, you at least if you're tracking your scores, you know where you're ranked. But then again, that comes with a whole world of problems if it went into this world. But you just know it. You know someone's going to be like,
I'm not registered to NAF. I debated. In fact, I did sign up to NAF the first year that I started playing Blood Bowl. Not even for a competitive thing, but mainly because for joining up, you get a nice set of dice.
Nice.
And purely because I thought this will be a cool way to see from starting earlier this year how my win rate increases as I learn more about the game. But then when you get to, again, as we're talking about the competitive scene, you get Blood Bowl tournaments, and then we'll even say in the title for the tournament, this is a NAF registered event, or this is not a NAF registered event, because there are people out there who will not play at a non-NAF registered tournament because their results will not count towards their record on NAF.
Sweaty.
Yeah, that exactly, and not only that, but like there's a group on Facebook called Blood Bowl Community, and it's literally the biggest culmination of Blood Bowl players on all of social media I've seen. I think there's 35,000 people in there, and I've never ever seen one post that is centered around NAF rankings that hasn't just turned into an argument in the comments. So yeah, so when my first year NAF, and they emailed me to, oh, you need to re-register, I was like, nah, fuck that, that's not for me.
No, it's but it's that but when you get competitive, when things go, bear in mind, I mean, if you take it back, when we first started, we played for fun, we enjoyed ourselves. The biggest event you had was Golden Demon, and there was some other bits and pieces back then, like, you know, so the reason I joined the hobby, I loved the artwork, I loved the models, I loved all that kind of thing. And it's funny, like, coming back into it now, how it's gone competitive, but with anything that goes competitive, like, you know, it's going to go that way. You know, we are
absolutely.
You know, put it this way, if you talk about, I'm not a football, I'm a rugby guy, but if you talk about football, you see how passionate people are about football, like, you know, and in one hand, you don't want it to go that way, but in the other hand, it needs to go that way to be able to make it bigger and better for all of us. So it's a very.
I mean, my understanding of the 40k competitive scene is that it's quite a new thing. It's not something that's been really around for a long time. My understanding, based from other people but talking to like other competitive players when I was learning how to play, a lot of people say that 9th edition was where competitive 40k really took off. And it existed prior to that, but it wasn't as huge as it was now. So you know, it's funny. It's been a casual cooperative It's the amount of C's that are in this game. It's a casual cooperative competitive game where you play against each other in good spirit and help each other beat each other. But then I think when you throw competitive bits into that, it removes the casual. And it removes the cooperative. And I find that very confusing. There's all sorts of C words I'm using.
Yeah, and just to touch on what you've just said about the competitive scene being new, I can't speak to other games. As I say, I'm only 3 years into Blood Bowl, but as somebody who played 40k, but God, 2004, 2005, I remember not long after getting into it, the Battle for McCrag box got released. So is that 4th into 5th edition or something like that, I think?
Yeah.
And I never even heard anyone say the word competitive in regards to 40k. And the only time you ever heard of like large scale tournaments where people were paying like £20 and £30 to enter was at Warhammer World, which obviously being a teenager back then, like I had no chance of ever going to like then. But now, like if you're a part of any sort of like social media group, whether it's Facebook or whatever, there's always like, I can only speak to Blood Bowl. I've seen a little bit of 40k, but it's like, oh, this cup, that cup, and it's like all up and down country. Not even like just people setting up in like community halls. So yeah, we're doing a tournament, and they're charging like £30 to enter. So I'm not judging if people are willing to pay it. That's their prerogative. But like, the access to tournaments that we would consider competitive just was not there back when I used to play in like 2004 and 5 at all. Not in any capacity other than Warhammer World.
I mean, I personally don't have a problem with the competitive scene at all. You know, no. I've considered, taking part, but I still feel now to this point where, like, I don't really think I could do very well, and I'll sort of wonder whether it's going to be money wasted, because you know what, if I'm gonna go to a competitive event, I am gonna kind of want to win. I mean, I am a little bit competitive. I can't avoid that. If I'm playing casual, I also would quite like to win.
Yeah. Now, I always say, my rule of thumb, and I think, Steve, you'll have heard me say this before, I never, ever want to lose a game of Blood Bowl. I always turn up wanting to win. And if I don't win, I can guarantee you I will not be happy about it. But I pride myself on saying that I guarantee not a single one of the people who's ever beat me will know that I'm pissed off about it, because it'll always be like, you know, I'll still be really friendly, offer a handshake, say well played and all that business, and then scream when I get in the car.
I think what puts me off... Go on, Steve, sorry.
No. I'm literally just saying, like, agreeing with you both completely. I play games because I want to win. We all play because we want to win, But yeah, it's again, as much as like Baz says, be able to, straight face, handshake, be nice, kind, and everything, and scream afterwards, I'm very much the same. I do want to get into the competitive scene. I do want to play it. I do want to experience it. But yeah, it's I think sorry, I haven't got much more to say, so I'm just pretty much agreeing there. Sorry.
Yeah. What puts me off though is that of my experiences so far, if I look at all the negative experiences I've had to date since coming back into the hobby, they have been while playing competitive players. And I'm not saying I haven't had any negative experience while playing casual players. I have. But I've had more negative experiences playing competitive players.
Right now, Mike, you are actually leading into the question I was just about to ask. So I'm going to ask it really quick, and then you're basically going to answer it straight away. So now we've established that competitive players don't necessarily mean what that competitive means, the definition, and we've established that a competitive player within tabletop gaming is usually classified as a certain type of person who. The way they play, the lists they bring, maybe like unfairly labeled as competitive. But what I was going to ask is, what are either some of your own worst experiences with an opponent? And like I say, it doesn't have to be in a tournament or competitive, because we've established that competitive players don't always have to be playing in tournaments, as some people might think. But what is either the worst experience that you've ever had personally with an opponent, or if you've not had one, like we've all heard like horror stories of did you hear about the player that like this and this? So have you got any sort of stories where it's like just showcases the very worst end of the scale of that type of player? And we're not going to just shit on them. I am going to follow up with positive examples of them as well.
Yeah, so the worst example I've got, I can probably think of is I was playing a guy, and he was playing Tyranids, and it was, I don't know whether it's still a thing actually. At the start of 10th, there was a trick you could do with the spore mines, where basically every turn you could use your biovore to shoot spore mines into your opponent's.
Oh yeah, that's gone. That's gone.
It got
checked. Yeah, that was just in the index when they dropped 10th. I play Tyranids for 40k. They had that in the index, and in the codex, they completely changed it. It's now fucking shit.
So I knew that existed, and then my opponent took 2 fixed secondaries, and I was like, well, that's weird. And then he started firing the spores across into my deployment zone, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what he's doing. And then we were discussing what he was doing, and the guy was very much like, yeah, I know it's like a bad play, and it's bad sportsmanship to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I was like, right. So I was like, I'm not. I was looking at the game, and I'm like, the only way I can. It's almost impossible at that point to stop them. I was like, well, I could try and overwatch one of the spores every turn, or I could try and screen out my deployment zone completely. But I just went, fuck it. I'm just going to go and shred him then. So I just literally charged my whole army across the battlefield, and just tried to shred him as much as possible. And tried to outscore him on primary, which, to be honest with you, it was close on primary, but he battered me on secondaries, which he would do. But it was just the bizarre attitude of saying, I know I'm being unsportsmanly, but here we go. And then I was chatting with a couple of the lads in the club after he'd gone, and one of them said, "Oh, I think he just needed a win."
Like it's a cigarette.
Do you know what I mean? It was such a weird. I was like, yeah, it was bullshit, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I so wish I'd won. I really do. It was what I look back at it and go, man, I wish I'd won that game. Of all the games I wished I'd won, that was the one that I wish I'd won the most. Just so I could have gone. But yeah, I'm glad that's gone, because it's fucking so annoying.
It's gone.
I thought they'd get rid of that. It was a big problem. I think everyone spotted it. But that's like one of them. And then I've had a few weird ones. Some Imperial Guard guy that insisted on using UKTC terrain. So I went, yeah, fair enough. And then he just shot me off the table because there was no cover for my army. But that's partly my own fault. And I've got a melee army going against Imperial Guard. It's always tricky. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to like hammer that guy for just using his army the way he would use it, and I'm trying to use my army the way I use it, and it's just a tough matchup. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
so,
yeah. So
have
like,
you had any experiences? So those examples you've given are very much like conduct in terms of the way they play their armies or things like that. Have you had any scenarios where you've had negative interactions on like a personal conduct side of things, Mike?
no, not really.
Not at all. Not even when you used to play and right down to now or anything.
No. Like I played a guy the other day in one of my Crusade matches where, like, all of a sudden he conceded the match because he said he was getting irritated. And I was like,
fair play.
It was completely out of the blue. Do you know what I mean? We'd been getting on quite well up until that point. But then he sat there and talked to me for the next half an hour about LARPing. So I was like, this is weird. So he's getting irritated, concedes the game. I think he saw the writing on the wall, mate, and gave up.
Yeah, probably.
But it was just it felt dead awkward at first, and then he just sat talking to me for half an hour about LARPing, and I was like, this is so weird. This is so fucking weird. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna pretend to go for a poo so he leaves me alone.
So, on to you then, Steve. Oh, go on, Mike. What you say?
No, sorry. Good Steve. Ignore me.
So, in your past stint playing, I'm assuming that given that you've mentioned you're quite limited in your current stint in terms of like getting involved in like competitive scenes or playing competitive at all. When you said like there were a couple of instances like people playing really hard, like meta stuff that made you not want to play or playing super hardcore, have you got any sort of like stories of specific examples, or even more so, like I said to Mike, not even necessarily just the conduct of how people play their armies, but even personal conduct? And I am building up something because I've got a fucking terrible one for you.
No, I mean, basically, so recently, the only other game that I've been playing is Lord of the Rings, or MESGB, whatever it calls itself now. I played the Battle Company version of it. So I've not had anything negative because it's been friends, like, and it's actually been just really nice and it's quite warming now. I'll tell you in a second when we get to that one. But previously, when I was playing it was silly little things, like, it was just... you're a teenager, you haven't painted your models correctly, or your models are half painted, you're there wanting to play, and it's the snide remarks you're getting, and you're like, I just want to play some games, Now, I'm an undercoat as a bare minimum kind of guy, as long as, there's effort going into it. But it was like silly little things, when I used to play, and they'd be like, oh, your badly painted stormtroopers are coming at me, and I'm like, don't pick up my models, And there was those kind of snide things that upset me. That's what made me stop wanting to play, because it was nothing to do with the game, but it was a silly ploy, it was a silly tactic to just get in your head sillily, And there was a couple of guys who used to play, and they were that way. They just always played together. Whenever anyone new came in, they made it difficult for anyone to join them, and it was that was it. That was pretty much what ended my original stint in the hobby, because I was like, I haven't got time for this. I've got other things I'd rather be doing. And also, being who I am and what I was a rugby player, so I was of a different build or caliber compared to who were the people I was playing with. Where now, what's nice about the hobby is open to. Well, it's interesting. Lots of people play it, or lots of people who have been secret players in their past. I've been like, yeah. Years, and it's no longer, that's no longer a stick. You don't have to be, a nerdy nerd. You can be fit, athletic. You can do whatever you want to do, and you can still play.
Yeah. Like I ran into a guy in one of my local clubs. He was fucking ripped, man. He was a proper beefcake of a monstrous man, and his Facebook profile had veins all over it, and he was like, ah! And he just played Space Marines. He played Blood Angels. I was like, that's interesting. He looked like a jackal, like World Eaters jackals. He looked like a steroid pack on his back, fucking monstrous bloke.
But it's nice now. It doesn't. So that was the end of mine. That was my bad experiences. Is it was where it was a bit more segregated in like the type of people who played it, and
Yeah.
it was more of a like you can't play with us because of something that happened to me by someone else and the rest of it. And I was just like, I just want to play. And now it's more open, which I love. Like so yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah. Well, I've got my example for not poor conduct, but maybe negatively perceived conduct in my most recent stint with Blood Bowl is in Blood Bowl there is something called stalling, and it's basically when you can score, you don't. And you're basically burning the clock so that when your opponent has the opportunity to get hold of the ball, they've got less time to get down the pitch and score in return. It's a totally valid tactic. It's outlined in rulebook that like it doesn't say it's allowed, but it's in there saying this is when a player is classed as stalling. And because it relates to a couple of other things where stalling players can, get rocks thrown at them by crowd and stuff. It's a totally valid tactic. I'm not saying anyone who does it is a shithouse, even though deep inside I really think they are. But me and all my friends who play, like there's about the hobby club that I started. There's about 12 of us that regularly come to those club meets to play Blood Bowl, and we've all kind of like even without discussing it, agreed that we don't stall against each other. Just because, like it's although it's a valid tactic, it's a little bit unsportsmanlike. But the first time I went to a tournament and somebody started stalling, oh my god, bro, I was ready for raging. It were all internalized. I didn't but honestly, inside there was a fire burning. Like you would not believe. I was just like, you fucking dick, why the fuck are you doing this? None of my friends do this, why are you?
No, I would get
and I think
ready for that.
Yeah, and I think the really bad story didn't happen to me. I wasn't involved at all. But when I used to play, going to I used to go to Games Workshop every other Saturday as a teenager. I used to get my mum or dad to take me for a while, get the bus or whatever. And me and my friend were playing. I only ever played against my friends. I never just went in and found an opponent. Me and a friend would always go together with intention of playing. And I remember there were these two guys who back then must have been. Got to have been in the late 30s, early 40s, something like that. And I just remember one guy were playing Tyranids, and I think the other guy were playing Space Marines. I'm not sure. I definitely remember them being Tyranids. And I can't remember what the old rule for Tyranids were when it came to being able to bring pieces that had died back onto the board, like regenerate. But this guy, we just heard him getting more vocal, the other guy, not the Tyranid guy, about how it were overpowered and it were pissing him off, blah, blah, blah. And I shit you not, to the point where he said, no, I'm not doing it. That rule's broken. It's not fair. I've had enough. Packed his stuff away. And you're probably thinking, oh, that is pretty bad. Yeah, but he packed his shit up, walked away from the table, and kicked the box carrying the other guy that had all the models for the other guy's army on the floor around table. Just scattered it across the fucking entire Games Workshop.
Wow.
Yes, that is the worst I've seen. Like I said, I went involved in that, and I just remember thinking, Jesus Christ.
That's just bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't. No matter what, you don't do that.
That's the type of person who would be a school shooter if they grew up in America, innit? Definitely.
Maybe that guy was having some other issues. Do you know what I mean? There might have been something. There might have been
his missus is cheating on him with neighbour and all that business.
Yeah,
he's losing
exactly.
His job, and then this guy's bringing fucking Tyranids back on like it's willy nilly, and it just tipped him over fucking edge.
Although to be fair, as you know, as I play 40k at the minute, there are a lot of armies that have got bring shit back to life mechanics that fuck me right off. Like
the worst at the minute has got to be Gene Stealer cults, surely.
No, I don't think so. I don't think Gene Stealer cults are that bad. I think Imperial Guard are the worst.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've got to trawl through 20 fucking Catachans to get to Lord Solar Leontus. Oh, look, there's 20 more fucking Catachans I've got to trawl through. Fucking hell. Yeah, I think Imperial Guard are much worse.
In terms of law, why would Imperial Guard have... Is it the reinforcements rule they've got or something?
I mean, it's a 2 CP strategy, so it's not cheap. But obviously Imperial Guard love it. And if you've got Lord Solar, he generates more CP for you, doesn't he? I'm fed up of trawling through Sentinels, 20-man squads of Imperial Guard. When I played Gene Stealer cults, if you're clever about what you fight, and when you fight them, they don't have as much ability to bring it back as they used to.
Yeah.
Like, I think I played them. Actually, my last game was against GC the Colts, and he only managed to bring back. I don't think he managed to bring anything back for the whole game.
Yeah. Now, you see what pisses me off about Tyranids in 10th is I think that if there's any army in 40k that should like have the most regeneration, it's got to be Tyranids, surely.
Yeah,
Surely.
absolutely. It's like
But
that
for
endless
10th,
horde thing, isn't it?
exactly. But for 10th, it's been massively downscaled. Like the Tervigan, the giant, basically Tyrannofex with an egg sac under its stomach. It used to have a rule where you could spawn 2 new units of 10 termagants, and that got like reduced down to like, oh, you can spawn, oh no, you can regenerate an already existing unit of termagants with D4 models. Like it's just a massive nerf, and it's just like I very much like to play Tyranids kind of like with not in my own head within the law. Like, and I very much prefer this endless horde of like infantry units. I know a lot of people like the monster mash lists where you take all the big stuff, but
Yeah.
when I imagine it cinematically made, I just like this army of humble humanoid creatures just with this absolute tidal wave of like these basically space dinosaur lizards that no matter how many you kill, 5 more take its place. And I just think like they kind of shat on that a little bit for 10th.
Yeah, well, Necrons are just unstoppable.
Yeah, they just bring it. Oh yeah, he's dead. No, he's not. He's back.
He's back. Like I literally, and I played Necrons. I wiped a squad of Necron warriors down to 2 men, and they all came back.
Fucking stupid.
Terrible. I was like, what? But I mean, I think they have nerfed some of that since I did that. But that was that was awful. That was awful. So yeah, like, I mean, on the other end of the scale, if they want to put some regeneration things in my army, I'm fine with that. That's cool. But at the minute, the way I see it is that all regeneration things should stop unless I get some, and then it's cool.
So getting back on track a little bit, and well, we've just had a little talk about 40k. In my opinion is that, and this is probably unfair because it's probably based purely on because there's more of them. I think that the perception of people like us who aren't those type of people is that 40k has the most toxic community. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, from what I see and from what I hear and what I take on, I mean, my experience is limited for a few different things. Down the club, it's still very much people. The clubs my local clubs are very, one of us. Like, you're either in it and you know it, or you're not. Like, they're not welcoming for the new people into it, which is a bit upsetting. But yeah, it's that, and then also what you see and what you see in the media and the competitions, and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, I think something that we're going to get into, like, which I think is only going to fuel it more. Like, so it's something that it's don't get me wrong. I think it's the minority against the majority, and it's the ones who there's a large percentage of people go play, enjoy themselves, have a nice time with a couple of friends. They don't make any big songs or dances about anything. They win, they lose, they do whatever. I don't think I've seen many people who win these competitions being the nicest people. Do you get me?
Yeah.
They're not they don't make it very welcoming or very open to other people. Like there was a thing, I can't remember now. There was a niche tea TikTok that I watched about the tabletop scene. There's something that happened. There was these 2 big guys who played, and how one guy ended up winning, although he shouldn't have won, and he did some dick moves, like, But it's that kind of stuff. Like, it's just I don't think it's the nicest environment. Whereas certain other environments, other game systems, like yourself with Blood Bowl, I'm really looking forward to it. People seem quite interested and excited. I play Middle Earth battle strategies with my friends, and it's brilliant. I love it. It's good fun, and some of the other ones like Necromunda, even that kind of one where it's RPG and you're growing your team and stuff. It's still quite good because I think with those, they still hold on to the thematic element of the game that I really love. and enjoy. But as soon as you get competitive, it is like poker. It's like anything is competitive.
It's like playing a maths battle with somebody when you get down to meta, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Math
you
hammer.
will yeah, but it's just like I love whenever I play anything, I'm just fanatic all the way. I'm like, what's that? I got a hobbit who's going to charge 3 elves. Go for it. He's got them. Like, and I hope something's going to happen and maybe he gets one of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I go for the big have fun with it. Whereas if you get competitive, like, if you do that, people are like, oh, he's easy. I get that kind of impression. Like, you just get roasted and binned out very early on. Like, so.
Yeah. So what do you think, Mike? Do you think that it's fair to say, even if it's just because of numbers and the amount of people that play it alone, that 40k does have the most amount of toxic players?
I think the issue is that from my experience of dealing with toxic fandoms and toxic players and just general toxicity, is that one of the things that toxic people tend to share is that they're all very noisy and they're all very loud.
Yeah.
And they all make a lot of noise. And we do have, like, in society at large, a general focus on the negative. So I think when negative things do happen, they tend to cause much more of a stir than positive things. So I think it drives this perception of the competitive scene as toxic. But I disagree. And the two reasons I disagree on that is, firstly, I think that 99% of people that you run into as a competitive player are absolutely fantastic people, and that they're really good. They're really good guys. There's always a bad egg, of course. That happens in all walks of life. Two of the guys that I've played with in one of my clubs, who I would consider the most credible competitive players that I've played, i.e., people that consistently go to tournaments on a regular basis and place highly. They're the loveliest blokes on the planet. They're so nice.
Yeah.
One of them regularly wins best opponent, as well as winning the event and winning fucking best painted, because he's just a complete bellend that's better at everything than me, which is deeply unfair. But yeah, I think there's certainly a perception that 40k is very toxic. I don't know how how well that perception actually pans out when you actually start playing it.
Yeah, I think it just boils down to, for me, who's had, I used to play 40k and I've played limited amounts of 10th edition. I think it is, you're right, it is the perception. And when you have a perception of stuff, it's this, if you've got limited exposure to something, it's a lot easier to remember, like, the bad stories you hear as opposed to the good stories. So I'm probably guilty of that. I being like, oh God, 40k, all them horror stories I've heard. But, for every horror story you hear, you probably hear 3 or 4 examples of people that who are just, like you say, absolutely down to the core, nice people.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, you go, Mike.
No, sorry, I didn't actually have anything to say.
Sorry, what I was going to say is, I think it is. You're right what you're saying about the negativity and how people remember and pick up on those bits and pieces. And you're right. I do think, like I said before, it's minority to majority. Whereas there is lots of people who are in this hobby are still the good people, are good fun people, and still enjoy it and everything like that.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's people who make noise, and that's it. That's what's remembered. That's what we see all the time. And again, another reason why I'm doing what I'm doing with my channel there, where I want to go and experience these competitions to see what they're really about. If they are as bad as they say they are, because if they're not, then I rather start shouting the good news about it and get more people in it. So it's it's about you're right in saying what you said there, Mike. It's it's what we hear, and bad news is heard more and is kept more.
Absolutely.
It's kind of good news if there's no news, isn't it? And that kind of stuff, but everyone, So
yeah, the only sort of news is bad news. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Like when I was a journalist, we all used to sit around as journalists going, "Man, I wish there was a murder." Do you know what I mean? Because it's good news. It's exciting. Someone's been murdered. We can do a good story. We can write a good headline. And then we'd sit there and go, do we Do we just say we wish there was a murder?
But it's true, isn't it? You know, no one cares about anything good, really, do they? Like, you know.
No, they don't.
It's because you expect good things to happen. You don't expect bad things to happen. It's about your expectations. So if you go in, like, to use my analogy of in a supermarket, where I've worked for many years, if you go into a supermarket and you walk around, you buy everything you want, you go through the till, service is great, you don't pay that much money and you leave, you've got nothing to say because everything went the way you expected it. But if you go to a supermarket, can't get everything you want, it costs you a fortune, and the person on the till was a bellend, you're fuming about it. Do you know what I
he's
mean?
right. Definitely. So we've talked extensively about competitive scenes and the players in games, and like perceptions and things like that. I'm gonna move on to an area that for me is I just don't understand it even in the slightest. And first of all, I know we had a little bit of a conversation. I had a conversation with you both separately about this subject. But I just want to know, do you guys like what do you know about coaching? And I haven't got my camera on, but I am doing like inverted air commas, the coaching for tabletop gaming.
So, like, I know you brought up that specific guy from, is it Tabletop Titans? I always forget which one it is.
No, but we're going to come. It's from something that rhymes with slam guard yak tits.
What? Oh yeah, Vanguard.
It
yeah,
rhymes.
Okay. So to be honest with you, that is an incredible rhyme to come up with. Like, what?
Slam guard yak tits.
Amazing. So like when I got back into the hobby, I watched a lot of those videos, like a lot. Like I was watching them for hours, because there's so many insights from them.
Yeah.
I sat and watched a lot of. I don't think it was Vanguard Tactics because I found the hosts quite annoying. But it was another one. The hosts weren't as bad. I think it was Tabletop Titans. I watched a lot of Tabletop Titans because I felt the hosts were a bit more. They didn't take themselves so seriously.
Are they the guys that do the 40K in 40 minutes videos?
Oh, I don't know. I just used to watch the battle reports. Oh man, I can't think of a defining aspect of them. They used to do it. I've seen them doing it in fancy dress and all sorts.
It's not play on tabletop, is it?
No, I don't. I can't remember now. But no, I've seen him doing like one of the guys dressed up as a custody, like badly dressed up as a custody for a game of custodies versus something else. And I was like, look at him, he looks like a right bellend. He's not. He's so badly dressed up. He literally just had like a gold cloak on and went, "Oh, I'm dressed up," and it was just like silliness. But then again, they could also play the game really well, and they could communicate like the different elements of the game really well. And I learned a lot from just sitting and watching them before I started playing games a lot more than I did. So I think like that element of it's really interesting.
Right. Okay. So let me just touch on the other side of it. So a lot of the examples you just mentioned, a lot of them, as well as offering up that free content up on YouTube, a lot of them like do coaching academies where people have to pay money for lessons in specific stuff. So before I have got a price list here from a academy I shall not name. But
is it Flable Flip Flops, or is it?
No, it's Slangard Yak Tits.
Old Tangard Flamdicks. Yeah. Okay, those guys.
Well, before I get onto the price list, because I want to get our opinions on it, regardless of pricing, do we think it's moral to take any money from people to teach them how to play a game or how to be better at a game that is ultimately dictated by the roll of a dice?
So I'm in two minds about this. So
okay.
Firstly, the hobby, to me, a hobby is a hobby. And every part of the hobby is from the building, the making, the painting, the learning, and the playing. And already out there is the information for us to learn to play that game. You know, we have the YouTube, like Mike was saying about the YouTube channels that he's watched. I've watched a lot of stuff to learn how to play the game and stuff like this. So on the initial, I'm like, no, like, you know, you're playing a hobby, you're in a hobby, you know, so learn the hobby, play the hobby, have fun with it. If you want to make content and you want to get people involved, or you want to make money from people in it, there's many ways of doing it. But I feel like coaching people to play, and this is one opinion of it, so I'm sitting fence a bit. It's like, well, no, I don't think it's right, you know, that people should pay. However, with it becoming a competitive scene, and if for whatever reason, you know, I woke up one morning and I said, do you know what, I want to be a competitive player, then, you know, I want to be the best player I can be, then if someone's going to say, well, I'm going to teach you how to be the best player and you pay me something, would I be tempted to do it? I would. But then back to one more thing.
That's fair.
Like, this comes back to one more thing where, why would I spend money on something I don't win money out of? Do you get me? You know, why would I? So, because if you look at it in this way, if I play a sport or I do something, you know, and there's monetary value or there's a future or career in it by doing it, then you would put everything into it. Like, I've got a friend who's a professional downhill mountain biker. I know professional rugby players. I know they've spent money to be the best that they can be, but there's monetary gain and there's money going around in it, in that. So I understand it on that element. What I don't understand is something that is fun and has always been, tabletop gaming has been at this level where it's just been fun, and to have fun and enjoy ourselves is now got into competitive, and now it's, you know, next year. I mean, how long does it go until the competitions have prize monies to it? Do you get me? Like, you know, if this, if this paying to coach comes in, that to me, that's the next level. You know, they're going to push it to that, and then, you know, if it does go that way, then like, what happens then? You know, you know, people are going to get commission painted armies. They're going to pay, you know, someone to teach them how to play the game. Someone's going to be giving them a back rub when they're rolling dice. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's that kind of thing. You know, so I'm two minds. If I wanted to, you know, I understand if it does go that way, and you're that kind of person, I get it. But right now, no. It's. I think doing this is offering up something to this game, this hobby, this thing that we enjoy for fun. Even if we have that competitive environment, it's going to make it a lot more competitive, and not as much. Well, it's going to make it, you know, like other sports or games, like, you know, where.
Yeah, because people have got a dog in the fight. They've given up the money. So then, if they've given up the money to get better at this game than they're not winning, that's when you end up with opponents who are dicks because they're pissed off that the money's not worked.
Yeah.
So what about you, Mike? What do you think? Is it moral to take money off of people to make them better at a game, or to help them get better at a game that is ultimately decided by dice?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, like, I'm trying not to collapse into a diatribe about the evils of capitalism. But it does.
You're right. No, it is. Though it is at the end of the day, isn't it? Like, you know, it's going back.
It does feel like it's a monetization of a skill, isn't there? In a way, it's the same as offering painting commissions.
Yes.
You know, it's just. I think what I'm struggling with it, as I've thought it through, is I'm not really sure what the market is. So if you're like a serious meta player that's got a lot of money to spend and wants to compete in the game, then do you then go and spend some money to learn how to play on top of buying all your minis? But you wouldn't become a meta player unless you knew how to play. I'm just trying to like work it through in my head about actually who they're trying to get. So if you're new to the hobby,
Mike, you've actually just raised one of my who? What you said, Mike?
New rich people. Is it that they're appealing to new rich people?
Right, now this is one of the issues I have with it, because I personally do think it's immoral, but based on the issue you've just raised, because I don't think it's aimed at people who are already good at 40k, because, you know, most of the examples I couldn't find academies for any other games, It was just 40k I could find for. It's not aimed at people who are already established to help them get better so they can improve their win rate. It is very much people who've just picked up the first box and they get sold this dream of, oh yeah, pay this money to us and we'll have you winning this in no time. And that is where I think it's immoral, because of the people that they're not actively targeting. It's just because of the nature of what you just explained, like, established players who are already like familiar with the meta and the rules and stuff. They're not interested. So ultimately their demographic has become these people who, like, are going to give up their hard-earned money and probably learn something, but it's not, in the end of things, going to make them an amazing player.
I mean, like, we could describe it as cynical, but then you could describe vast amounts of our, capitalist society as cynical, couldn't you?
And
You know what I mean?
I think what will make it worse is I've got an example here. I've got a couple of prices. I say a couple. I've only got three that were the specific to the transition from 9th edition 40k to 10th edition. Now, all these prices they were on the website in dollars, but I've changed them to pounds. So the first course that we're offering, bear in mind these prices that I'm about to list you, is not individual coaching. You would be in a group of people, I'm assuming virtually somehow, like in a virtual classroom. So this is the
not even one-on-one.
No, not even one-on-one.
Not
So
even
the
one-on-one.
No,
Fuck me.
no.
Jesus.
And I could I could be wrong. But when I get to the end of this list, the way they've written something, or the way they've sectioned it on the website, makes it very clear without telling you that these ones I'm about to read aren't one-to-one. So the first one that I saw was the 40k 10th edition accelerator course. And I read about the course, read the description, and they obviously tried to sell it to you like fucking crazy. And what I got from it is it essentially teaches you the difference in rules between 9th edition and 10th edition, and then you get the added bonus of, with this purchase, reserving yourself a spot within their academy for the 10th edition. And I did learn that getting a spot in their academy just means that you're already on the list to be able to purchase future classes, because their academy is always full. How much do you think this course to teach you the differences between 9th and 10th edition 40k, as well as securing your, again, inverted air commas, a place in their academy, how much do you think they're charging?
What? I got 150 quid.
Right, okay. What about you, Steve?
I've got the list in front of me, so if I was to take a blind guess, it would have been 150, 100, 150, that kind of thing.
It's actually less. It's less, to be fair. That £96. But I think the thing that gets
but then
me.
On the flip, yeah, no.
Go on, Steve. What are you saying?
No. Sorry, I took out the element of being in the classroom, with a whole bunch of other people,
Precisely,
really,
exactly.
That kind of thing I'd be paying 20, 30 quid for,
Yeah. So £96, and you will sit in a class with other people. I do apologise to Slangard Yak Tits if I'm incorrect on this, but the way they've put it on the website, it makes it very clear that these other options are in a full classroom with other people, I'm assuming, because they outline one-on-one separately, and I'll get onto that in a little minute. So all you learn from this is the difference between 9th and 10th, and you get a spot in their academy for the duration of 10th edition. And all being in their academy means you get to join their Discord, speak to other members of the academy, speak to reps from the academy, and you basically get first pick of any future classes or courses. You don't get anything else by the looks of things. And if you do get anything else, they've done a terrible job with the website, because it doesn't say anything other than that on there. So that if, it's their fucking fault if I'm false advertising.
I mean, like, that's
so
that
go on, Mike.
You can get a load of schools for that. You can literally buy a load of schools for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you take? I'd buy the model. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's there's an element of it and the Games Workshop are guilty of this as well. It's what did I say? I think I described it as milking the whales.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the community that have got a large disposable income, and they get milked for that disposable income by Games Workshop. Are bad for it because they obviously charge a lot more money for like their prices, and obviously then they can get it cheaper other places. But yeah, it's just milking people for money, and like again, like it's easy for me to say that's bad, but that's pretty much how our society runs these days. Everyone's basically out to
Yeah.
milk someone else for money. So yeah, I mean, like I think if you're going to go and label it immoral, then you're going to go and label probably 40% of businesses as immoral.
No, I get that. Yeah, I get that.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I certainly wouldn't spend that money, especially on a 9th to 10th edition transition course, because they ain't that fucking different. They're really not.
Mike,
To be honest
it
with you,
gets far worse. It gets far worse.
Mate, honestly, a lot of people said to me when I started playing 9th, I said, "Oh, the last edition I played was 3rd." They were like, "Oh, it must be so different." It's fucking not. It's not that different. There's not. It's basically you get the stats are the same, the movements the same, terrain rules are there's so much which is exactly the same as what I played in 3rd edition. List building, it's so similar. I literally obviously I had to learn the 9th rules, and then that was a bit of a waste of time, so I stopped. So then I learned the 10th rules. But so much of it was yeah, I remember that from 3rd edition. To a point where I was actually playing on occasion 3rd edition rules in 10th edition. And I'm like, oh no, that's from 3rd edition. I'm sorry, I was doing that. I used to remember. I think it was in 3rd edition. World Eaters Champions had 5 attacks, while normal World Eaters Marines had 4, and I'm still running 5 attacks. Or maybe that was in 9th. But do you see what I mean? There's no clear definition between the two. It's so similar through the editions that I didn't find it that different. So to charge nearly £100 for a transition course, that's a little bit bonkers.
I mean, for all I know, that course could be to teach you 10th edition, as a whole, not just the differences. But again, that's not my fault. The way they've worded it on the website, it looks like, from what they've written, it just teaches you the differences of 10th edition. And as I said, it does not get better than that. So after you've forked out £96 to learn the differences, or the full version of 10th edition, you then have the option to buy a course for £36 to teach you, and this is because obviously these were the 2 guys in the Leviathan box. You'd pay £36 to learn how to play specifically Space Marines or Tyranids. That's not £36 for both. Pick a faction and they will teach you how to play either one of those for £36. What do we think to that?
So you can't get that unless you pay the first money out?
No, I don't think it's like a progressive thing. I'm just saying, if you were somebody who were interested in all this, end of the day, you pay £96, you learn about 10th, but then you don't know how to play the army that you want to play. These guys then offer this. So I'm saying the natural progression in their business model would be buy this, then this, then this. You know what I mean? Not like you've got to.
Yeah, with that one, they're clearly aiming at new players, aren't they? 36 is much more like affordable level, but obviously you'd have to learn how to play 10th first. Well, to an extent, anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And then if you've somehow found yourself on the website and you see, oh, they actually have a course to teach you 10th, then you might think, oh, I'll do 10th course first for £96, then I'll do the Space Marine course for £36. I think that's kind of like why they've done it like that.
It's just, to me, it's mind-boggling that that's the thing.
Steve, again, it gets worse.
The thing, but I come back to it. It's like I can whenever I play a new game, I watch other people. There is enough information out there to learn how to play something off someone. There's enough channels and everything like this. So again, this is but then being business minded, I understand a bit, because they kind of go, right, you need everything you need is in this one spot to learn it, and it's that laziness of being humans, isn't it? At the end of the day, you pay money to get to go away from fear, to get to comfort. It's if you think something's going to do you better, you're going to pay it. They it's preying on people's fears into the hobby, which it's a term I don't think should be used. But it's like people are scared that they're not going to do well in it, so they're like, well, we'll teach you how to do well in it. When actually, when actually a lot of other people in it are like, just get down there and throw dice. You're going to pick it up. You're not going to lose the mortgage on the house because you lost a game of 40k. It's,
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing. Warhammer is fun, and it is something that, you're all meant to, we all learn it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to go in, I'm going to enter a competition with 40k. I'll probably get roasted for it, but I'm going to learn how to play it. There is a way of doing it. It's not, it's just, but it's like that, Tyranid of Space Marine, paying money to learn about them or whatever. It's just like, just read the books, learn, watch the YouTubes, enjoy that part of the hobby. That's the hobby.
Yeah,
that's
I agree.
Part of it.
Yeah.
Why are you paying someone to tell you this stuff? When it's just mad.
I'll teach you how to play for free, Steve. I'll teach you how to play. It's no drama.
But there's a lot of people out there, as much as I say my clubs aren't great. I'm at another place now, and we're talking about different game systems and stuff. Obviously, what I'm doing, it's like, yeah, no, I'll go through it with you, and once you know how to play it, then it's more of it's kind of like you're either going to be good at it, or you're not going to be good at it. Not to sound like an arse about it, but you can get good, and you can get better. And that's learnt by experience, by playing. If you don't play,
yeah, absolutely.
One course is not going to make you the all seeing, all dancing. Now, the only other thing I can think of, they'll be like, look, if you're going to play, these are the moves that you got to do. We do these moves, then everyone's doing those moves. Do you get me? It's just like,
yeah.
And then suddenly, oh, you're one of them. Okay, this is how I beat you.
Yeah.
They will undo themselves, it's like the Karate Kid, isn't it?
That's what I thought. They're going to teach you. They're not necessarily going to teach you the fundamentals of the game, but they're going to teach you the tips and tricks. Do you know what I mean? Take this list, use that unit to do that, use that to do that. Because it would take you a lot longer to figure those things out on your own. But then again, like Steve said, it's not like there aren't many resources available. There's literal resources everywhere. So yeah, I don't know. They say these courses are full, but I'm like, how many people are on the courses? Is it full because there's 8 million people on it, or is there just 2 spaces and 2 people have took the spaces? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't tell you how many people have signed up. They just say it's full. I could say that about. I could go on the internet tomorrow and go, "Hey, I'm not taking any more commissions, guys. I've got too much work on, and I've actually just got one job." Do you know what I mean? That's too much for me. I'm always sus. I'm always sus about people making grandiose claims.
Yeah. So I think the next one was probably, when I was reading it, the most bizarre. And I am going to say, before I even discuss it, that there is a very high chance I've misinterpreted this, but I'll put it to you guys and see if you guys pick up what I picked up. So for another £36, you can choose either Space Marines or Tyranids. And the literal title of the course was, get ready, Space Marine or Tyranid Codex course. So this course, and I apologize in advance if I've gotten it wrong, if they ever happen to listen to this, but I read the description and it comes across as though it teaches you the Codex specific stuff for whichever of those 2 factions that you choose.
Don't they do that for free already? I'm sure I watched the World Eaters one that was free from them guys.
I think.
Are they just trying to monetize their content?
Yeah, but they'll just claim but it's not like as YouTube content. We're going to so much more detail.
Yeah, they'll market it that way, won't they? Yeah, that again, that's a weird one.
Yeah.
Just read the code.
I'm on the website looking at it now. Spread across 6 modules, 1 for each attachment. You'll dive deep into understanding how it plays, performing a SWOT analysis, perfecting deployment and mission play. It's just
it's literally, if you've bought the fucking book, which you will have done if you're wanting to learn how to fucking use it, just fucking read it and save 36 minutes.
Yeah.
It's preying on lazy people. I mean, look, and this is one thing I will go on the other end. He's made a business out of it, and I take my hat off to him on that end. If there's people who will pay that money, to me, I don't think it should be a thing, full stop. I wouldn't be able to create a business doing what he's doing. I don't think it's very moral. in many senses, like, because it's taken on someone's, some of the people in our community spend money when they shouldn't spend money. Do you get me? Like,
Yes, yes.
And it's a bit of, it's picking at, to me, I feel like it's picking, the stray ones around the edges, like, it's the easy pickings, like, we'll take them, like, and I'm sure there's other things that are great about it, but I'm just,
just quickly touching on the thing you said about people spend a lot of money that can't really afford to spend that money. Have you seen that there are some third-party sellers for Games Workshop stuff now that offer fucking Klarna?
Yeah, that's everywhere.
Yes, there are some third-party sellers who do Klarna. That's that paying over 3 month thing, innit?
That's it, yeah.
So you could spend a couple £100 and just be able to pay it off like monthly for 3 months. Like, that is fucking dangerous, especially for those type of people you just mentioned, Steve.
No. While we were
I suppose, like, from another perspective, is are we just being grumpy old men?
I
know. Young people, back in my day, we didn't have a lesson on how to read a codex. We just had to read the codex and figure it all out for ourselves.
Back in my day,
is that what's happening?
Back in my day, we couldn't split the cost over 3 affordable monthly payments.
I had to do the paper round for 4 months, and
we just had to save up for it. It took me 2 birthdays and Christmas to get my bloodthirster.
No, it's the whole thing with where the hobby is going with competitive play and the coaching now, it's a progressive thing to me. Like, it's, if it's going to go that way, it's going to go that way. There's more coaching courses that I found one here, Baz, you're going to love. It's in dollars, so I think it's in America. Professional coaching gold for $500 a month.
Holy shit.
Want to work with one-to-one with one of the best Warhammer 40k coaches in the world and improve your 40k game. Like, I think with all this, what I'm coming back to and all this is like how...
Steve, just quickly repeat that, because Mike just dropped out. He's just come back in. Just tell him how much that course you've just found was.
Professional coaching gold for per month, this is Mike, is $500 a month.
What?
For what? And I'm only going to read the top line of it, and then I'm going to make a point, which I think where this all stems from, where I get upset and I don't like what's going on. Look, it says want to work one-to-one with one of the best Warhammer 40k coaches in the world to improve your 40k game. How do you know someone is the best 40k coach in the world?
Yeah.
How do you know someone is the best player in the world? Like, obviously, if someone's won a few competitions, they've won a few competitions, but there's no tiered. It gets back to this tiered ranking kind of thing in my head. Like, the game's
gone full circle. We're back to the initial point, aren't we? Like, it's like you said, there's no measure of it. It's just a bloke saying I'm the best.
And that's it. And this is where it's dangerous. When you get to like the clan, you get to all these other things. This is where it's dangerous. We're in a place where you can't say, I can't say, I know I'm a hobbyist. I am a hobbyist. I do it for fun. That is me. Like, I am not the best player. I'm not anything. But when someone says we're the best at this, like, there's no governing body above it saying, yeah, actually you are.
Yeah.
Like on football, you'll say like, yeah, that is the best player because of his stats. Formula 1, he's the best driver because of his stats. So on and so forth, and the rest of it. But when people are like, we're the best 40k players, pay us money and we'll teach you how to play, like, you can pay all the money and then they can be useless. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. All I'm getting from this is that we need to start an organisation a little bit like the food hygiene service that just randomly turns up and scores people.
But it's that, like, if people don't get tiered or people don't get put into the right area, not so much put in the right areas, but, graded, whatever, I'm sure there'll be a better idea come to me when I'm sleeping tonight and say I should have said that. But, it's that thing, like, it's picking on people who think other people are better because they shout louder. And they think they've got to follow that trend because, they're advertising. Getting back into the competitive, these guys were the first people I saw,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
their names are there, they've paid the money for the advertising, and they're running the business, so they're doing what they're meant to be doing. But then I was like, do I need to do that? There was a moment in my time in my life when I first started going like, I think I'm going to need to get one of these coaching courses, and then I went back to it, sitting on the toilet reading the codex, going, nah, don't need to. I'll just figure it out. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
But yeah, it's
Very bizarre.
No, but it's like it's mad. Like, this other company that was a gold. Silver is $277 a month, and the bronze is $177 a month.
Wow, that
Wow.
is wild.
It's
That
like,
is crazy.
Again, the only other thing I'd understand is the only way I can think these coaching services would ever survive is if the games became monetized. Do you get me?
Yeah.
There was a monetary prize at the end of it. I don't want it to get that. That's just me being grumpy and whatever. I wouldn't want it to get there because I don't think it would be a fun it would not be a fun environment.
No.
I mean, listening to the books, watching the lore, doing everything. I love that, and I love the idea of playing the games and thematic all the way, like and having fun with it. But then as soon as he gets like that, you ain't got a clue. Like it's like when you're playing online gaming, like there's certain when people know all the perks of the guns and this that. I ain't got a clue. It's that. So
yeah, no, I agree. I just want to quickly touch on based on what you've just mentioned about that other course. I thought were quite convenient that Slangard Yaktits were very vocal and very proud of the pricing of all their other courses. However, if you click on the one-to-one coaching section on the website, there is no price, and you have to fill in a form to display your interest, which is just a massive red flag to me.
Yeah. As soon as you go into a shop and there's no prices up, you're just like, yeah, this place is too expensive for me. I'm leaving. That's exactly what it is, isn't it? Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm not going to necessarily say that Slangard Yaktits one-to-one coaching is as expensive as the one you've just found, Steve, but I would imagine the fact that there's no price and you have to inquire separately for it, it's probably going to be a hell of a lot more than the 96 quid and the 36 quid for this course. It's going to be a shit ton in it.
Get a quote, Baz. Drop a message in, get a quote.
Yeah, I might do actually. But that's what made me think that. And again, I could be wrong. All those other stuff that I listed, the price and the courses, that's what made me think that those ones were all in a classroom because they had a very specific section of the website that was specifically to inquire. Exactly. So why would you not mention that they were one-to-one and then have a separate area of your website for one-to-one if they weren't in a huge class with other people? Do you know what I mean?
Do you reckon they're even live? Do you reckon it's just a video that they filmed?
Oh, bro, imagine.
That's
do you reckon it is?
Do you know what? I bet it's fucking pre-recorded.
Here's a link to our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Just you and fucking you and 15 other limpets sat watching a fucking video.
Yeah, with that guy in his fancy shirt that his mum bought him.
Oh, fucking don't! I can't fucking stand that guy. I can't stand that guy. I'm sorry.
He's a bloody World Eaters player as well. I'm fuming. Absolutely fuming.
My God! Honest to God, like I'm losing all the decorum that I had of not like chatting shit, but I fucking hate that guy. What a fucking dickhead! what a dick he is, bro.
Wasn't he?
Mike,
Wait a minute.
Have you seen the video he did, Mike? Like the pro with a mission or whatever. Did I send it to you?
No, he didn't know.
Mate.
Because he's a World Eaters player, he's on the World Eaters group that I'm on Facebook, and I'm sure he posted a picture of himself before he became a competitive player, and he was like a model or something, and there's like a picture of him like shirtless in like a model pose.
It can fuck off twice for that then.
I think I'll have to have a look, Barry, and see if I can find it, mate. Because it's pretty fucking.
I will send you the link to the YouTube video, and I'm not gonna like say what happens, but there's a specific part where he gets really upset with his opponent, and I just thought like he's this online personality trying to sell these courses and stuff, and he puts himself forward quite well in all his videos. But I thought in those like I don't know if you agree, Steve, but in those like 10 seconds or so in that video, the mask definitely slipped a little bit.
No.
Well, I remember. No, go on. Sorry, Steve.
No. He literally, basically, what it is. I know his type all day long, and that comes from competitive sports, like where never was wrong, always right, the best, always drove to be the best kind of. And you're like, we're just having some fun here. No. And that mask came. Yeah, it slipped. It showed that kind of I'm in it to win. He does not lose well, kind of thing. There's an arrogance there, and yeah, I literally like you, Mike. When you watch, it's like you watched the video. I watched one or two of him, and I was like, no, I can't deal with you because I don't. I see through you. I see who you are.
Yeah. I think the exact phrasing of what he says in that clip. I'll definitely send it to you, Mike, because it's a funny watch.
I've only seen ones of him being quite professional. To be honest.
Well, basically, this video was like a documentary of like the Warhammer 40k competitive scene, centered around this guy.
Oh, I've got to see this.
There's a specific moment where he's playing against somebody who's playing Eldar, and I think the argument he's got is he's either forgetting to roll a dice or forgetting to declare that he's rolling a dice. I think it's something to do with his fate dice, the things that Eldar get.
Yeah.
And he has to remind his opponent twice. And on the third time, he gets a referee over, and halfway through the referee explaining, he just goes to his opponent, nah, fuck this, I'm picking my models up, I'm not playing, man, sorry.
I'm picking my models up.
Yeah, that's what he says, I'm picking my models up, I'm not playing.
And it's just like...
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
It's proper.
I've had people say to me, like, if you're unhappy with the way that your opponent's playing, just pick your models up and leave. And I'm like, mate, I get that, but I've paid £3 for the table. It's took me half an hour to drive here. I've spent hours painting all these fucking minis. If I just up and leave, I look like the bell end, and it's a complete waste of my fucking time. So you know what? What I'd rather do is stay, try and enjoy the rest of the game, and if my opponent is a bit of an idiot while he's at it, just walk away at the end and go, lol, he was a bit of a prick. Ooh, just take your models and leave. Yeah, I'm not.
But there was other things that in that thing that he was doing, like he was saying how he was getting agitated. The game was taking longer, bits and pieces, and then this is where his coaching thing comes into play, where he was then like, well, I was getting quite frustrated because there was a meet and greet where people were paid to come see me, and I had to go and attend that, so I had to walk away from all, and I was just like, fuck, and now this is Oh,
isn't it hard being head of like a academy that charges that much money? Oh, isn't it terrible you had to do a meet and greet, you wanker?
But it's that, no, he was saying he had to, he was upset, he was ruining his tournament. It's like, well, look, you started a company, it's on you, you go.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm going to comment and say, if it's that much hassle, shut fucking company down, you money grabbing bastard. Just go to tournaments and play without having to fucking shake hands with fucking peasants. Prick, honestly, that guy just what a douchebag.
The thing is
like, I remember not so long ago, he was big hyping up like I've got this new amazing World Eaters list because he's a World Eaters player. And it was just after 10th launch, and I was actually really interested because I was thinking, right, this guy, he's a professional player. He's got loads of experience. He plays all the time. He's going to come up with this like really interesting World Eaters list to go and use. And maybe I'll steal some of his ideas. And he brought his list up, and I was like, mate, that's just the 9th edition meta. That you've literally done nothing.
Yeah,
it's just the same. I mean, and I get that World Eaters have got a small unit pool, so they're not going to be hugely different. But I think like the amount of hype, I don't know, maybe I'd hyped up a bit myself. But I was a bit like, it's not actually that exciting, is it, pal? Really, you've just got Lord Invocatus and some 8-bound. So fucking everyone's got that.
No, there's definitely one of them. No, it's he upset. He did upset me. I watched that. I watched the whole thing through. It was hard to watch. It was.
Yeah, it was a tough watch.
Please send me that. It sounds amazing.
As soon as we get off here, I'll send you a link. It's crazy.
Please send me that. I haven't seen that. It sounds magical. Magical. There's definitely a reason why I picked him for my competitive Warhammer 40,000 players video because he just epitomizes like the stereotype. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but that perception of him is you could just just play onto that quite nicely. Bless him.
Yeah.
See, so just quickly, like we're talking about money. I know it wasn't part of the thing. How do you guys feel about people getting armies commission painted to then
No, there's
compete?
nothing wrong with that.
You
Nothing
know,
wrong with that.
no, but the thing
Some
is
some
like,
people want to engage with the hobby, but are not interested in painting at all. So if a tournament requires you to have a painted army, which most of them do, if you're willing to give some cash for somebody who's better at it than you, fair play.
It's interesting because like the painting aspect has somehow ended up feeling more niche than the tabletop gaming aspect, and I find that
100%.
really weird.
Yeah,
That
absolutely. Back when I used to play, everyone used to talk about what they were painting, and then it'd just be like, yeah, and we're just gonna maybe turn up one time and play with them.
yeah, now it seems to be like I always split the hobby into like three aspects. There's the lore side, which is games, books, TV shows, whatever. There's the painting side, and then there's the tabletop gaming side. And you get people that drop into the hobby in different levels of each area. So I used to be majorly into the lore and not so much into the tabletop and enjoyed the painting.
Yeah.
Now I'm back into the hobby. I'm enjoying the painting a lot more than the tabletop, but then I'm enjoying the tabletop a lot more than the lore again. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that for some reason the order in which the accessibility now exists is lore, tabletop, then painting. When I would
Yeah,
thought it would have been the
definitely.
other way round. It would have been
Yeah,
lore,
I agree.
painting, then tabletop.
Well, back in the day, it used to be you it kind of came on your radar because of the law, and
Yeah.
then to get into the game, you would have to buy models, which you would then have to paint, and then you could play with them. But now people are just like, I remember back in the day, like barely anyone played with unpainted minis. Like not like that they should have done, but people just didn't. And now, like I've played against people with a full army of grey, like, and I don't mind it. Like I'm not judging anybody for it, but it's just mad how different it is from what it used to be, where it was so rare you saw people like turn up to a Games Workshop or any hobby shop with unpainted models.
Well, the thing is that like when I used to play it back in the day, I used to think really low. I used to think quite badly of myself because I didn't think my painting was very good. But now when I've gone back into the hobby, I kind of look around and go, well, that guy's got an entire army of grey. That guy's half base coated, half not base coated. That guy's painted pretty badly. Actually, looking at my army, I'm probably the best painted in the fucking room, and it's really strange.
I've got friends. I've got friends who like I'm not going to name anyone, but who are not the best painters, and they'll be really downfield, really downtrodden, and say, "Oh, I've painted this. It's not very good." I always say it's better than it being fucking grey.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. Of course it is.
But again, like you was, again, it's one of those things you only get better by doing that and have it. But yeah, like you said, it's weird how many people turn up with unpainted or just undercoated armies, like
Yeah.
To me, I love painting, and I'm not the best. To me, on the hobby, that's just my time, So that's why I do it. But yeah, it's interesting. Like commission painting, although like I was saying, that's all okay. I'm okay with people because that's one way of making money. You get back to this coaching thing. I just don't think it's something that should be a thing. But it's happening, and I think there's big changes going to be on down the way off the back of this, which we're not going to enjoy.
Yeah, probably not, because we're grumpy old men, apparently.
We are grumpy old men, and I can't wait till I'm old enough to get a rocking chair and sit on the front of my house with a stick, shouting at kids in the street, going, "I know your dad," and stuff like that. It's going to be amazing.
Oh dear me! So it's getting pretty late, gents, and I've covered all the talking points that I wanted to cover. Does anyone want to mention anything really quick before I sign us off?
No,
I think I've covered everything.
No, I'm good there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, do you just want to quickly plug your YouTube channel, mate? Tell people about your, what your channel's called and what you're going to be doing and what they can expect in coming weeks and stuff.
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel that I just started. The whole purpose of it is I've called it From Shelf to Tabletop, where I'm taking a starter set of loads of different game systems, and in 2 months I'm going to paint the starter set, learn the rules to play the game, and enter a competitive game or event with that. Just the whole point of it is seeing if it's doable from the starter set, and as someone who hasn't played competitively, how it goes and how the whole journey goes. So the first one I'm doing is with yourself, Baz. We've got the Bugman's in February, and I've got the Blood Bowl set. I've got half of it made now. I've got another video I'm going to be releasing shortly. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Actually, really nervous though. So I'm actually getting the sweats about it a bit. Like,
is that video going up tonight or tomorrow?
I'm hoping tonight. I've done most of the editing. I've actually got to do a little bit more stuff in here tonight. So I might release it for an early morning release in the morning kind of thing.
Yeah, very good.
So
nice one.
Yeah, it's nearly ready. So yeah, and I'm doing that. And then obviously as well, I have TikTok. We've got the hobby club as well is the other thing I forgot to plug at the start, if you don't mind me, where...
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Accidentally made a hobby club because wanted to just hang around and chill, chat, paint, and have fun. So if you're interested, give us a follow on @WhenICanHobby. There's full stops between each word on TikTok, and join the Discord. And yeah, we hang out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays on TikTok.
Very nice. Mike, do you want to just quickly plug your TikTok, mate?
Yeah, sure. So I've got TikTok. My username is @DrewJanus. I cover all sorts of basic white guy nerd content. So if you want to get angry about Star Wars, I'm there for you. If you want to get angry about Star Trek, I'm there for you. On top of that, I do live streams on painting Warhammer 40,000 miniatures. I'll be painting my new Khorne Demons army in 2024, which I'm really excited about getting started on. I'm currently working on some Black Legions Chaos Space Marines for my friend. And then what else am I doing? Do lunchtime live streams on like light-hearted topics. So if you're at work and you're a bit bored and you want to have a chinwag about stupid stuff like how good spoons are, then I'm there for you again. But yeah, that's about it really. My most content is like reviews and memes and silliness. Trying to be light-hearted, not arguing about trans rights and Donald Trump and the flat earth. Trying to avoid those sort of things. Like so many want, I'm keeping the politics out of life. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
And so on that note, gents, I would like to thank you very much for taking part tonight. I've really enjoyed it. Despite it sounding like we were going to have very narrow-minded opinions on things because of us like exposure and perceptions and stuff, I think it were quite a balanced debate / conversation. We were quite reasonable and forgiving of, well, not forgiving, but admitting as own, prejudices that were either rightly or wrongly in place. So yeah, I just want to thank you guys for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having us on.
And I would love to have you back another time when we think of another topic to discuss, if you're all right with that.
100%.
Yeah, do top 10 fruits.
Top 10 fruits, we'll put that on list. Oh dear. So on that note, guys, thank you very much for listening. Keep an eye out for future episodes of All or Nuffle. There is going to be some Blood Bowl specific content coming up. I'm hoping to get Steve on to discuss his Blood Bowl journey as we prepare for the Bugman's Belter in Feb. And as you've just heard, these guys are willing to come on and discuss some other topics in future. So keep an eye out for that. And until then, be safe and take care.
Cheers.